Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have another edition of all my books. This time we're going to be talking about short fiction collections. Now, I am specifically talking about all of the basically short story or novella or collections of both that I have in my collection of books. I do not read that much short fiction because it's just not a medium of literature that I particularly love and grab onto. I am a novels person, particularly adult novels, particularly genre novels. However, short stories are oftentimes great stories, and I'm able to get into new forms of storytelling sometimes, and sometimes my favorite authors contribute to short story collections. So because of that, I try to collect some and read some. And in fact, on the channel, I am reading through short stories every week, and I am providing a few reviews, like 2 short stories a week. I know I could do more, but that's what I've been focusing on. So why don't I get into showing all of the short story collections I have? And I'll start with the Star Wars ones. The first Star Wars ones I'll talk about are the Tales of, edited by Kevin J. Anderson. These came out in the 90s. You have Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina. We have Tales from Jabba's Palace, and Tales of the Bounty Hunters. Kevin was having a sale on these on his website, and so he actually sent me signed copies of them when I ordered them. And these are short story collections originally published by Bantam, now republished by Del Rey, and they are featuring the different places, and a lot of the Bantam era authors are included in these short story collections. I think a few of the Del Rey era authors made it onto here as well. These are I read like a few of these short stories when I was at my brother-in-law's house, because he has some of these books, but I really haven't read most of these, and so I'm really excited to get into these one day. Next on my shelves, I have the From a Certain Point of View books. The first one, Star Wars From a Certain Point of View, which is really dusty. I need to undust it. This book I read the entire thing, one, just for reading purposes, and 2, for a podcast that I was doing back in the day. And so I have read all of that. That is one short story collection I have read in its entirety. Now, the next one is probably the most familiar to people on the channel because it's the one I've been going through in my YouTube shorts, and that is The Empire Strikes Back From a Certain Point of View. I'm working on these short story reviews currently. This will take me... I started in January, beginning of January. It'll probably go through beginning of May, maybe end of April, somewhere around there. But that's those short stories. And they're all right. I'm not loving them, but I'm not hating them. And then the third one, the one that came out last year, was The Return of the Jedi From a Certain Point of View. And those I'll be reading eventually as well. Then we have a short fiction collection that I did read, and that is the Tales of Light and Life for the High Republic. I did read this and review it on the channel, so there's a video review on the channel if you're interested. This one was kind of all over the place, but I enjoyed some of it. Next, we have Legends of Luke Skywalker by Ken Liu. This is a short fiction collection that is not supposed to be canon or anything serious. It's just kind of fun stories that are told about Luke Skywalker in the Star Wars universe. And boy, are these weird stories. Boy, are they weird stories. Woo! Anyway, this is one of my least favorite Star Wars books ever published. Ever. Next, I have a really nice Star Wars Legends, the fiction collection, and I think there are actually some canon short stories in here too. But this one I want to read eventually, and this one has full-page artwork inside. And this copy was signed by Tim Zahn when I interviewed him, which was really nice. But that is the fiction collection, which I intend to read. I can't put that on there. Will it fit? It will fit. Perfect. All right, let's keep going on. The last two Star Wars ones, and then I have some non-Star Wars ones. We have Star Wars: The Clone Wars: Stories of Light and Dark, which was just retellings of some Clone Wars arcs and episodes, but from the perspective of specific characters. And I had a blast reading this when it came out. It was just such a fun experience. Yes, it was just rehashing the Clone Wars, but I love reading, so it was great to go back to those stories and to get them in book format. And it didn't add much. There was one original short story in this collection. Everything else is just retellings of episodes. But it's just so delightful to get to experience the Clone Wars again. It's just so much fun. So and there's some cool artwork in a few of the pages. That's pretty nice too. So that short story collection. Then we have the Stories of Jedi and Sith collection, which is original stories, which there's one story in here I didn't like. Every other story in here I really enjoyed. And this was just a really cool collection. And this book I actually do have a video review on the channel. So just look it up in my name and you'll find it. This one I read and really enjoyed. Next, for I only have two Star Trek short story collections. I know Star Trek's done quite a few. I only have a few of them that I've purchased. One is the Vanguard collection for Vanguard is called Declassified. This is actually a novella collection from Dayton Ward, Kevin Dillmore, and David Mack, who are all authors from the Vanguard series. And then Marco Palmieri is the Star Trek editor, or at least he was in the 2000s. And he was the editor on the Vanguard line, and he contributed to this novella collection. And this is actually the next Vanguard book that I need to read. I've been doing like one a year, and so this year I'll have to read this one eventually. Next, I have Tales of the Dominion War, which is edited by Keith DeCandido, which kind of ties into the Dominion War stories era from the DS9 series, which is the DS9 series is not my favorite, and it is not my favorite era, but I am a fan of Keith DeCandido's writing. I actually met Keith, and he signed the book when I purchased it from him, and so I figured, you know what, I'll get the book and try it out sometime. Next, for some non-genre collections, I have the Ford County Stories by John Grisham. John Grisham is an author I love. I really love his works. He's quickly becoming an all-time author for me. And this collection has a few duds, some great ones, and then there's just a few amazing, just fantastic short stories in here. There's a short story in here called The Casino. I think that short story should be made into a movie. I would go watch it. It's a delightful short story. But all the short stories and novellas in here are interesting. The first one's a little R-rated. Well, some of them are R-rated, but that was... Anyway, next is a short story collection that I have technically read some of the short stories of, but not for like 15 years. And that is The Selected Stories of O. Henry. And that is because when I was in middle school and high school, I did not like reading at all, and at least not early high school, later high school I did, but in middle school I hated reading. The only short stories that we had to read, if any of you were in high school, you probably had to read these too. They'd have these big textbooks for English class just filled with short stories and maybe one or two novels in them, and I hated all the short stories that we had to read. But the only ones I didn't hate were the O. Henry short stories, because I loved the twists in them. And in fact, some of my favorite short stories that I remember, Gifts to the Magi, O. Henry, and there's also one, I forget the name of it, but there's another one about people on a train and handcuffs, and I won't give away the whole short story, but that's also an O. Henry story, and those were some of my favorites, and I loved them. And so when I started writing my own short stories in high school, my teacher said, "Hey, you really write like O. Henry writes." And so he was like, I kind of emulate him. So I wanted to get the short story collection. I will read it eventually because I think his short stories are great. Next, I have a collection from J.R.R. Tolkien titled Tales from the Perilous Realm. I did read this, and I believe I left a review on the channel. I may not have. I don't know if I did. Look it up just to check. But making you guys do the homework. But this is a short story collection and novellas from J.R.R. Tolkien. And I remember there are some that are in here that are just delightful, some of in here that are just weird. This is the only acceptable story of Tom Bombadil in here. I do not like Tom Bombadil in the Lord of the Rings books, but in here, the Tales of Tom Bombadil is okay. It's okay. You have, let me see, you have Roverandom, Farmer Giles of Ham, Adventures of Tom Bombadil, Smith of Wootton Manger, and Leaf by Niggle. Yeah, I enjoyed a lot of these. So that is that short story collection. I saw that the book was coming out, and it was a new copy back in like 2021-ish, and so I got it on release day, and I was so excited to read it, and then I learned, oh, this book's been out for years. It's just this version, this edition is new. So anyway, next, for my favorite author of all time, Brandon Sanderson has his short story collection, Arcanum Unbounded, and I very much intend to read this year. This is one of those short story collections I really want to get to because Brandon's my favorite author. I love a lot of these worlds, and I've technically read one of the novellas in here, but I do enjoy Brandon's works, so I'll get to that eventually. Next, I have a short story collection that is a fantasy collection titled Of Wizards and Wolves, edited by Lisa Mangum, and this is just a fun collection to read. I read this last year when it released. I think I am one of the only people on the internet that read this book. If you read it, please let me know, because I don't know a single person that read this book. Nobody talks about it. But Of Wizards and Wolves, it is a memorial anthology for David Farland, who died a few years ago, and this anthology is to memorialize him. And it's about wizards and wolves, all the short stories in there, and there are some delightful short stories in here, just some delightful short stories. Next is a short fiction collection by a collection of short stories by Jason Cordova. This is actually kind of a self-pub short story collection, or at least it's not self-pub, an indie pub. And I bought this because I met Jason Cordova at DragonCon this last year. He and I have had communications throughout the year, and he's a delightful gentleman. You should check him out and follow him on Twitter and stuff and buy his books. But I picked this up because I want to read more short stories, and because, boy, this is just an eye-catching cover. I think this is an eye-catching cover. And I'm interested in reading more self-pub and indie pub. So there's that. Next, getting into short story collections that have been sent to me by the publisher Baen. I have a very close relationship with the publisher Baen. Most people know that. They've sent me a lot of short story collections. I've not read all of them, but I've read some of them, some of their books. And so one of the books that they sent me that I have read is What Price Victory, which is a novella collection edited by David Weber, but there's contributed by a bunch of people, and I interviewed all these people for a video on the channel, the What Price Victory interview. Just look that up, What Price Victory, David Weber, Jonathan Cohen, you'll find it. And Zahn and Pope were not on that particular call, but I have interviewed Timothy Zahn before, but everyone else that contributed to this was on that call, and it was a delight getting to interview all of them. I also have the short story collection Worlds Long Lost. It's a science fiction collection edited by Christopher Rocchio and Sean C.W. Korsgaard. Sean is a good friend of mine. I think Sean's great. He's a great contact in the industry. And Christopher is, of course, the big author of the Sun Eater series, which is really popping on YouTube right now and everywhere right now. Anyway, this is a science fiction collection. A lot of recognizable names in there, also from Baen Books. Then, I can't believe I'm going to say this title out loud, and I give Jason and everyone at Baen a hard time for this. The title, Chicks in Tank Tops. I made the mistake when I was trying to look up information on this book for an interview with someone. I accidentally typed it into my YouTube search bar, or into my Google search bar, and I was like, crap, now it's going to be in my recommendations. Anyway, Chicks in Tank Tops, part of the Chicks in Chainmail series, a sci-fi version, edited by Jason Cordova, who showed up earlier, and with a bunch of people. I've actually interviewed several of the people who contributed to this short story collection, so it's kind of funny that I haven't read the collection yet, but I know a lot of the people involved. Then Baen also sent me Weird World War China, which is their weird World War stories. They did World War III, World War IV, and World War China. And they sent this to me, and I have actually read 2 of the short stories in here, and they are weird. That is an accurate description of them. The last one is the most recent one that was sent to me by Bain. It's United We Stand, which is short stories as part of the Black Tide series. I don't recognize this series, but I intend to read it eventually because I know some of the authors I follow have contributed to it. But this is an anthology edited by John Ringo and Gary Poole with a bunch of other authors who participated. So that is my collection of short fiction books that I have on my shelves. Most of them unread, but a few of them are read. As I'm going through this, I'm like surprised at how many I actually had been able to read. So if you've read any of these short story collections, let me know in the comments section down below. And which ones are you interested in seeing me read sometime? Let me know that in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.